Mahaguna is called Rajas. 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 Rajas is marked by excitement. It's a principle of passion, action, restlessness, if you will. It's the mover and shaker, and it's responsible for motion and action in the mind. And just like the doshas, the mahagunas can sometimes be demonized with characteristics. Now, if the mind is not in a sattvic state, it's in one of two others, rajas or tamas, which I'll talk about in a moment. Rajas is the excited mind, the stimulated mind. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. We need rajas because rajas gives us the capacity to complete a task, to see a commitment to the end, if you will. It is helpful to us in that it gives us the energy to wake up in the morning and get stuff done, right? Rajas is, you could correlate the cycle of the sun in a 24-hour period, right? Sattva would be the early morning period, that subtle light energy where it's just dawn and day is just breaking, right? That has a certain energy to it of harmony and sereneness. That is the sattva cycle. Rajas is the where you could say would be like midday, where the sun is shining bright. And that's where we're most active in our daily lives, right? We're really cooking with our careers or our families and such. So we need rajas, but we need it skillfully. We need to use it skillfully. So, some ways to cultivate rajas intelligently would be to listen to some inspiring or invigorating music, for example. Like for me, that's Latin music. I'm a Latina. My family is from Puerto Rico. I grew up in the US, but I'm very connected to my Latin roots. And as a hobby, I'm also a ballroom dancer. So I compete in Latin ballroom dances. And so that music of cha-cha and mambo and rumba, tango, all these dances are very enlivening to me. So when I'm feeling like I need to cultivate a little more rajas and a little more oomph, right? I'll listen to that kind of music, which will jazz me up, right? Too much of it, though, will tip me over into a really agitated state. And so this is just like the doshas, too much, too little won't do. Dosage is important in Ayurvedic medicine. And Ayurveda is the middle of the road path, kind of like Goldilocks. It's got to be just right, not too much, not too little. Some of the foods that create rajas tend to have the pungent taste. So those really fiery foods like your chili peppers and your onions and your garlic. Also, spices, spicy foods. Like I said last night, not just the spicy as in really hot, peppery foods, but just overly spiced foods create rajas in the mind. Black pepper, mustard seeds. Um, I'm actually remembering once several years ago, I was preparing dinner for my partner at the time, and it was early in our relationship when we had just started dating, and I was preparing a meal and I was sautéing some tofu, and I had wanted to spice it a little bit with some cumin, but the cover was loose. And so I dumped like a quarter of my spice jar of cumin into the pan. And yeah, so what had started as going to be this very light, subtle sattvic meal, I had actually pushed it too much into rajas because my spice jar broke or spilled over. So Um, yeah, that was just a little funny thing that came to my mind right now talking about rajas because it was stimulating. It's not that that was a necessarily pungent spice. It was just way too much of it. So, I had to adapt, had to shift gears a little bit. Um, but similar to pungent foods, substances with caffeine will cultivate rajas. Energy drinks, that like 5 hour energy shot that comes in like the little bottle, that's incredibly rajastic, right? It's going to rev up things. It's going to create that passion and action and agitated kind of state. Stimulant drugs will do that. Cannabis will do that. Cocaine. Yeah. Alcohol is considered a rajastic substance. Yeah. So we want to use these things intelligently. If we're watching in our entertainment horror movies or like lots of gore or like Game of Thrones, for example. That was a show I started watching, but I couldn't continue. It was just too rajastic for me. And it was creating a state of agitation in my mind that took a really, longer time for me to kind of bounce back from. So I am much more mindful in my choices around entertainment. So I'm not watching Game of Thrones or Dexter or, these kind of police detective stories like what is it? Special Victims Unit, in what is it? And it's not NYPD Blue, but you get the sense of what I'm talking about, right? Taking intelligent choices of our entertainment and what kind of images are coming through our eyes, what kind of sounds are coming through the ears. I don't want to watch 2 hours of hearing somebody scream in terror. Yeah, that is rajastic. So these are examples of what cultivates rajas. Yeah. And like I said before, these can be demonized, and they shouldn't be, because in Ayurveda, anything can be considered medicine or poison. It's about who is using it, how that substance is being used, and when that substance is being used at any given point in time for that particular individual. This is why dosage is so important, and there are no broad categorical black and whites in Ayurveda. It's about finding the middle of the road, finding what is going to be sustainable, finding what's going to work for that particular individual at that point in time. So there are times of our lives where we might need more rajas to get that energy to just get out of bed in the morning, right? So don't think of rajas as necessarily bad. It's just a universal quality that exists in the universe. And it's up to us to decide how we're going to utilize that. So that's rajas.